Hey guys, so this is the second part, level 2 of the Simplifying from Observation project, and this time I'm going to be reviewing your portraits. But yeah, basically the project was to simplify the shapes, the values, and the edges into just almost the bare bones, 5 values, 1 edge, and shapes built off of blocky streets. Ooh, okay, so this one's a little different. Interesting. So you have a lot of that shadow, that darkest dark is really dominant here. And then I'm not seeing very much clarity in the lights. Which is interesting because usually when the light values are too close together, usually the cause of that is when the artist or the student didn't make the shadows dark enough. And so it kind of forces the lights to just be like all within this little range because the shadows are like taking up the middle part. But you made the shadows very dark, and so you have like almost the rest of the value scale for your lights, but you still kept the lights extremely light, which gives it this really big contrast between the two. And so you have nothing tying the two together. So they look very separate. This doesn't look like one volume being hit by light and you got soft plane transitions. So I think what you're missing is just the darker halftone in between these. Like, let me just add a few and you'll see how big of a difference it can make in tying that together. Okay, so you do have a few areas where you did put that dark halftone, like right there, and it looks like you have some in your lips, but then you're missing it from this entire area. And then little transitional planes from shadow. Here, there's a nice plane. You could even connect these or keep them separate. Look at inside the eye socket in here. All around this dark part of the lids, there's shadow. That's an eye socket that's inside, underneath the brow ridge. And a lot of times that pocket is shadow. And actually, I just realized I'm kind of mixing up the dark halftone and the shadow value, the lighter shadow value. You combine the two together. And so now what we have left is 4 values for the lights, which is fine, actually. I don't mind that. We now have more room to describe all the planes in the lights, which is kind of cool. This is totally a valid solution to this problem of, how do we organize the values in here? Is just blow out all the information in the shadows. Let's just say it's not important. Let's say we want the viewer to look right there. So 4 values in that area, more value range. And so now this value that I would usually say is the shadow of the face, right? All of this stuff in here. Instead, now we're using it as our darkest halftone. It would have been better to capture the egg effect of a head. And what I mean by that is, our head is kind of shaped like this, right? It's got an egg shape, big on the top, chin a little more pointy, and you have the light coming from over here, and so the lightest spot on that egg would be up here, and everything that goes away from that lightest spot is going to get darker and darker, and so the bottom of the egg is going to be darker than the top of the egg. Which, if you now look at the portrait, it means that the forehead and the cheek is going to be lighter than the jaw, anything in the jaw. And so with the effect that you end up getting, just do a really quick block in here. Keep the same simplicity. The effect you get is that everything down here will have this darker halftone. And so instead of keeping these edges sharp, I'm going to show you what would happen in real life. So you'd get a soft gradation of the halftones. This is just to illustrate the point of what happens in an egg. And then the highlight too, have a little, and then maybe even a slightly darker core shadow in areas. Okay, so that's the egg, and you can see how by adding this gradation at the bottom, we're getting a very round looking egg. It's elongated. And what you did in the jaw you're taking that light and you're bringing it all the way down right next to that shadow. And so what that does is it loses that slightly bottom plane that you see in the photo. This whole plane right here is facing a little bit more downward, whereas the cheekbone is facing up. That's why it's getting a lot more light. And then like the brow ridge in here is facing up. A little bit of that is facing up. This is facing up. And then just the overall egg effect. I mean, obviously these planes in here are all kind of going back and forth, but overall, you still need to feel the egg. And so one thing we do need to do is first clarify, well, what is actually shadow in this eye socket? So I would say there, and maybe a little bit right here. We can say those are the shadows, and then everything else, let's call that halftone. Coming off of this, off the halftone, darker halftone. Definitely darker halftones in here. Actually more shadow. And actually let's clarify this shadow, unify it a little bit, and then transitional plane in here from shadow to jaw. And then the next one, the next lightest value. Now that we have that extra value in the lights, we can just leave, we could definitely include this whole bottom plane of the jaw in there. And then we still have 2 more values to use up here. I'm just gonna simplify this area for now. Okay, and then lighter yet over here. Bring this lighter plane of the lid back in here. And then the white, your white for a highlight here. But yeah, you see how much more it feels united with the shadow? So it wasn't really your shadow that was wrong because it was so dark. That's totally fine. Like a shadow could be pure black. It's just now that you've said, okay, shadow is pure black. It's all the way over here. You've extended your range of values, and that's totally valid. But now the rest of your picture needs to match that full value. So you need to bring those halftones all the way over too. You say, okay, well, my halftones are pretty dark. Then I got another halftone, another one. And 5 values, 4 of them are in the lights. And when you do that, now everything just comes together and it feels like one unit. It feels like one egg. You know, like for example, you have this part between the hair as a highlight, but it's not. I mean, look how dark that is. Like if you compare that value in there to the highlight on the nose, like you see how much darker it is up here between the hair? That's one thing that kind of throws people off is being tunnel visioned. You'll work on an area and you'll only compare the values in that one little area instead of comparing the values to the whole picture. And so you'll say, well, this value between the hair looks really light compared to the hair. And so it's like, okay, well, within here, I can make this full value range of white and black. And then you come into the forehead and you say, okay, well, in the forehead, the highlight and the halftone look very different. And so I'll make the halftone really dark and the highlight really light. And you'll make like a wide range of tones in that. And then you'll forget to compare all those values to that other part over here. And so then everything becomes fragmented. But this exercise, what it's supposed to do is allow you to simplify everything down to just 5. So it's easier to manage and compare the whole picture and be like, value 3, that one looks just like that one over here. Or close enough that we can group them together. And this is a great exercise to help you keep everything in check while still getting a pretty good read of the bigger forms. So there you go. Hopefully that helps you think about your values in a more manageable, organized way. Cool, guys. Well, again, way too many submissions for me to review. There were like 1,000 of you who did your assignment, so good job. But I hope that this gave you all a range of issues to be thinking about. You know, a lot of mistakes are very common across all of you, or a lot of you. So hopefully you learned something from watching me critique other people if you didn't get the chance to be critiqued. Thanks for watching. If you want to see the full critique, plus way more premium content, check out the course at proko.com/drawing. I'll see you there.